Who do you want the Raiders to draft at pick number 6? Let's say that you're sitting down in a room with Pete Carroll, John Spytek, and Tom Brady. They look to you and they go, who should we go with at number 6 in the 2025 NFL Draft? Coming up today here on the Raiders Report, I got my top 25 players for the Las Vegas Raiders that they could pick at number 6 in the 2025 NFL Draft before free agency. Let's face the facts. What the Raiders do in free agency is going to drastically change the Raiders' plans for what they do in the draft. So I wanted to be able to do this video now before the Raiders start re-signing players before free agency, and I'm also going to do it again, obviously, after free agency. I got to give a huge shout-out, though, to our sponsor here, Panda Supps. If anybody's looking to get into better shape, maybe you're trying to become the best prospect that you possibly can, use code FKC for 25% off at pandasupps.com. So the way that this show is going to go is this. I'm going to work my way from 25 all the way down to 1. The number 1 prospect is the player that I want the Raiders to be able to get the most at number 6. NFL free agency starts March 12th. The legal tampering period is 48 hours before that. For those that do not know, the NFL Draft, April 24th to the 26th. Day 1 on April 24th is 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be live for every single pick during the draft. We will also get the picks before you see them on TV. With 10 total picks and a lot of money to spend in salary cap, I can't wait for this offseason. It is important to note that these rankings are based on the Raiders and the Raiders only and their current free agency needs. These rankings are not my top 25 players in the NFL Draft. I do this show for the silver and black, and these rankings are simply based on players that I think would fit with Chip Kelly, Patrick Graham, this overall Raiders team, and that's how they are ranked from 25 all the way down to 1. Let's go to the 25th best player that the Raiders need to go out and get, Jihad Campbell. And I love linebackers, and I know the Raiders got Campbell very high on their list. Quite frankly, if he's there at 37, it's going to be somebody that the silver and black look at, though I believe Campbell gets drafted in round 1. 119 tackles last season for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Divine Diablo, Robert Spillane are 2 players who are going to hit the open market. Campbell is a great Divine replacement. Let's go to number 24 here, James Pierce Jr., an edge from Tennessee. The Raiders need to be able to get north and south, and you got to be able to pressure somebody like Patrick Mahomes. With 7.5 sacks last season with the Volunteers, he's somebody that is a little bit undersized, but he's got some good length to him. Let's go to number 23, Malachi Starks. This is a player that most people have in their top 15. The reason why he's 23 for me is because the Raiders have other bigger needs besides going out and getting a safety. If they drafted a safety at 6, I would be really disappointed. And he is a good player, and I know that Trevon Merrick, Marcus Epps, Isaiah Paul-Amal are all free agents. But taking a safety at 6, I have him at number 23 for a reason. Let's go to number 22, and kind of the same thing here. Colston Loveland, tight end for Michigan. He is clearly a top 25 prospect in the draft, right? But I don't want the Raiders to take him at number 6. He would be fun to kind of pair next to Brock Bowers, though we also have somebody like Michael Mayer. Loveland is good enough to be in my top 25. He's probably like closer to 10 overall prospect, but I got him at 22 because we don't need another tight end. Let's go to 21 here. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle for Texas. The Raiders already have Colton Miller, though I'm kind of interested in the idea if maybe Miller would be interested to go over to the right tackle spot. You slot in a left tackle like Banks, 6'4", 320 pounds. I know a lot of people have covered him very closely in this office. We got a lot of Texas people here, considering the fact that we work down here in Dallas. I've heard a lot of good things about him. If you want a prospect that has shown that he can grow and get better, and if you have a lot of confidence in your Raiders offensive line coach, which, it's Pete Carroll's kid, if you're confident in your offense, then I think somebody like Kelvin Banks could be a really fun player overall. I told y'all the other day that I went on Twitter and I asked, what segments do you want to see on the Raiders Report? I saw this one from Omar Jackson, and it said, talk about what the Raiders will realistically do with the number 6 pick. I promise you, I see what you guys have to say. I am the type of person, if you take time out of your day to watch the Raiders Report, I will take time out of my day. Most of the time, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm dropping to number 2. But I'll go and I'll look at what you guys are all saying and what you're doing. I mean this. If you want to interact with me more on social media, and I hope that y'all do, it's an easier way for me to get to know you guys. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Mitchell Renz 365, literally everywhere. But that comment is why I'm doing today's show. It's proof. I'm telling you. I see what you guys have to say, and I appreciate it very, very much. Let's go to number 20 here. I'm going to go Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan. The Raiders need to find another replacement for a John Jenkins, Adam Butler, and Grant is a massive human being. If you put Grant on the interior, that's going to free up Tyree. It's going to free up even Christian Wilkins. Like, if you're a defensive tackle, I would look at what the Eagles just did to the Kansas City Chiefs, just put 2 big defensive tackles on the center, and it just ruined Kansas City. I'm kind of on board for that idea. I'm going to go with number 19 here, Tyler Warren. He's the best tight end in this year's draft. He's a top 10 prospect for me. I've watched a lot of Penn State football, but I mean this. Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren, that might be one of the best young tight end duos that I've ever heard of. It's not the pick I would go with. I still want to see what Michael Mayer has. Mayer is a good tight end prospect. But Warren has to make my top 25 prospects list. He just had to do it. I couldn't leave him off. Let's go to number 18 here. I got Luther Burden the third. Speedy wide receiver from Missouri. A little bit more undersized, 5'11", 208 pounds. So he's thicker in that regard. I would say for somebody that's looking for a receiver that's not afraid to lay some good blocks and can be a solid number 2 behind a Jacoby, technically a number 3 behind Brock Bowers, Luther Burden is a good player, but there's a better wide receiver that I'd rather the Raiders go out and get. At number 17, Mykel Williams. He is an edge rusher from Georgia. He's had some injuries, okay? He had an ankle injury, which literally slowed him down last season. And you're going to hear me say this probably 10 more times by the time of the end of this video. I believe so much in Rob Leonard and Patrick Graham that you're going to see a lot more edge rushers in my top 15, in my top 25, maybe than some other people out there, because I just have so much faith in Rob Leonard and Patrick Graham to get the most out of those edge rushers like they've done their entire career with the Raiders. Caleb Von Chase and Malcolm Koonce are great examples of that. Coming in here at number 16, Mike Green. He's an edge rusher from Marshall. And this is one of those long and lanky dudes, 6'4", 250 pounds, 17 sacks, had really good production. Again, at a little bit of a smaller school, but I'm telling you this, if you like projects, this is a great, great project player that I think teams are going to see him, and they're going to be a little bit cautious of him playing at Marshall. You put him on the football field, and you see the energy that that young man brings because he's got a great first jump, great first step. You put him in a room with Max Crosby, Mike Green could be really, really fun to watch. Before we get into our top 15 overall prospects, if you want more draft videos, if you want more Raiders draft videos, hit that subscribe button, I'm telling you, and we will be live for the 2025 NFL Draft. Quite frankly, those 3 days are some of the most fun days that we have as a Raiders Report channel, and I hope you tune in because you're going to get to know me, you're going to get to know Chugs, you're going to get to know our entire Chat Sports team a lot better, and I actually think it's the best thing that we do here as a company is the NFL Draft. Let's go to number 15 here. It's Josh Simmons, offensive tackle for Ohio State, another player that unfortunately did get injured this year, and I would have liked to see where his draft stock would have been if the injuries did not happen. He has the measurables, though. He's 6'5", 310 pounds. He's more of a left tackle, I get it, and I know we have Colton Miller, but sooner or later, we as the Raiders have to wonder, could we get an offensive tackle, right? Look at the Chargers, what they did. They already had Rashawn Slater, but they saw Joe Walt, and they go, I'm going to add the best offensive tackle in this year's draft. Could the Raiders potentially do that? Just something to keep in mind. Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon, is going to come up here at number 14. I might be one of the only guys that has him as a top 20 overall prospect. I don't know. I have him on here, though. Again, this is the Raiders Report, and I am so dedicated in winning in the trenches this offseason, it's not funny. 6'5", 320 pounds. He's going to be able to clear some tacklers. He's going to be able to get more one-on-ones with Max and more of these edge rushers. And for a team like John Spytek and Pete Carroll, they want to dominate in the trenches. At here, number 13, Tyler Brooks, offensive guard from Alabama. Booker, what did I say? Books? Yeah, I can't read. You guys should know that. Big body. 6'5", 325-pounder. Plays mainly left guard. And because he can play left guard, I think of the offensive line that the Raiders could have where Colton Miller, Tyler Booker, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Dylan Parham, and then we might have to figure out another right tackle on the other side. He did have a little bit of a down year for some, though there were some injuries that kind of popped up. But if you're looking for physicality, if you're looking for somebody that in the right system and in the system that I believe the Raiders are going to try to run, they're going to try to run power football, but they're also going to try to spread you out a little bit. Tyler Booker, because he can play left guard, is the fit that I'm going to have there at number 13. Let's go to number 12. Shedeur Stewart, edge from Texas A&M. If there's a player that's going to really throw people off, maybe if you're just somebody that looks at stats, it's Stewart. He had only 1.5 sacks, though he had like 20, he had an absurd amount of pressures. My point is this, 6'6", 290 pounds. Do you believe in Patrick Graham? Do you believe in Rob Leonard? Yes. Yes. Do you believe in Max Crosby to motivate players? Yes. If you're somebody that you look at the tools of a player and you go, that's a Ferrari, and he's a Ferrari. He just hasn't had the right driver. He hasn't been able to put it together yet. If Stewart is able to put it together, he has the athletic traits to legitimately be a top 10 edge rusher in the National Football League. And I always look at stats like pressures because sometimes pressures are important. And everybody used to always say, oh, you can't just look at pressures, Mitch. I looked at pressures with Malcolm Kuntz, and I said, if this guy figures it out, he's going to be great. He ended up figuring it out. Was great. Caleb Von Chasen ended up figuring it out. Even a guy like Max Crosby. These are players that, if you believe in your coaching staff, that's somebody you got to look at. Let's go with McMillan here, wide receiver from Arizona. I'm just going to call him T-Mac because every video that I watched over the past week, everybody's calling him T-Mac, so I'm going to call him T-Mac. 6'5", 210 pounds. He's the best wide receiver in this year's draft. And no, it was no disrespect to Burden up there. If the Raiders are going to take a wide receiver at 6, there's one option and one option only. It's flipping T-Mac. 84 grabs, 1,300 yards. The size, the speed, the route combinations, everything that he brings to the table, he's so fun to watch. He's ranked a little bit lower now on this list for me because the Raiders don't have a quarterback yet. And to me, if I'm going to take a QB at 6, or if I'm going to take a wide receiver at 6, I want the Raiders to have a quarterback. If the Raiders go out and they sign a Sam Darnold, they add a Matthew Stafford, if they add a quarterback in free agency, like I think they will, I promise you this, if the Raiders sign somebody like Sam Darnold in free agency, you will see T-Mac in my top 5. Mark my words, entering the NFL draft. Before, though, we get into the top 10, this show is presented by Panda Supps. I'm trying to get into better shape. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Been doing a lot less of the shenanigans and just trying to be a lot better, healthier version of me. And one of the things that I always have to do is I got to stay focused at work, because when I don't stay focused at work, it actually impacts my ability to get a good workout in afterwards. I love taking their nootropics. It helps me lock in. I take some nootropics before I do every single live show, every show that I do in general. Use code FKC for 25% off at pandasupps.com. If you're like, Mitch, what other products does Panda have? I would say protein, if you're looking for the best protein on the market taste-wise. It is sweet, but I like sweet. Pre-workouts are some of their best sellers. BCAAs is something that I use every single day to stay hydrated. It's also just kind of helps build your muscles. If you're trying to lose weight, their fat burners literally shred pounds off you. Almost everybody here at Chat Sports has used them and are using them. Their greens is something that Alex really likes. And, we talk about all the time trying to be healthier. When you wake up in the morning, you take a scoop of your greens. It kind of, flushes the system. For any car guys out there, not their car, like actual driving cars, greens, I would say, is like putting oil in your car. It's not gas. It's not as important. But my dad used to always say, putting oil in your car is more important than putting gas. So if that's how you think, maybe get your hands on the greens. If anybody out there spends more than $100, you're going to get that shaker and that bag. When I say that shaker and that bag, it could be different colors. I'm not going to lie to you. There's white ones, there's black ones, there's red. Though usually if you use code FKC, Murbad's the owner. He's a big Raiders fan. He's not going to give you a red one because he knows you don't want probably Chiefs colors. So seriously, if you spend over $100 using code FKC at pandasupps.com, you're going to save 25% off, and you're going to be able to get your hands on some awesome Panda gear. Let's get into the top 10, shall we? Armin Membo, and hopefully I pronounced that one right, offensive tackle for Missouri. He's a right tackle, and I liked what I saw from DJ Glaze last season, but this is a business decision. This is about getting better. And at 6'3", 315 pounds, I would say he's the best right tackle in the NFL draft. 90.4 overall PFF grade, which then allows, DJ Glaze to kind of be this swing offensive tackle, offensive guard prospect that the Raiders can go out there and use. This is somebody, I'm telling you right now, his stock is going to continue to go up and up. If you haven't heard about him yet, you're going to start hearing about him more. Let's go to number 9 here, Shedeur Sanders. And he's number 9 on my list. And I'm going to be real, if I was looking at only prospects and prospects only based on talent, I don't think I would even have Shedeur in my top 20, but we need a quarterback. If the Raiders go out and they get a Sam Darnold, whoever, I'm going to drop Shedeur Sanders down my list because I'm not going to say it's as big of a need. But right now, at the time that I'm making this video, we need a QB. For that reason, he's number 9 on this show. So let's go to number 8 now. It's Ashton Jeanty, and that might be a little bit of a surprise. What I'm saying right now is, yes, I have Jeanty ranked higher than Shedeur Sanders based on what this team is right now. Though I'm not going to lie to you. I think if it was pick 6 and the Raiders could pick between Jeanty or Shedeur, I'd probably want them to go Shedeur. That's right now. A draft day, it might change a little bit. He's the best running back in this year's class. At the same time, I say all that, this running back class is so flipping deep, like an Amari Hampton. I get him maybe in round 2. Trevian Henderson in round 3. Scatabo maybe a little bit there, round 3, round 4. Jeanty is a great, great back. But I have him at number 8. And right now is where I'm going to make a clear cutoff and say any player from here on up, if the Raiders took them at number 6, right now at the time I'm making this video, I would sit up there and I'd give him a big old round of applause. Let's go to number 7. It's Will Campbell, offensive tackle for LSU. I believe he's the top tackle in this year's class. 6'6", 323 pounds. If I'm the Raiders, I would maybe even take a page out of the Chargers book of, I'm going to just add the best tackle. And I'm going to say, Will, you play left tackle. Colton, I know you got $0 million guaranteed on your contract left. How about this? I'm going to give you a little bit of a bump in pay. I'm going to give you some more guaranteed. All I need you to do, though, Colton Miller, is I need you to go over to the right side. I wonder if Miller would entertain that idea if you gave him some extra money with 2 years left on his deal. Campbell's the best offensive tackle, and if you want to win in the NFL, and if you want to try to get a new quarterback, you need to be able to prove that you can protect his blind side for the long haul. Let's go to number 6 here. It's Will Johnson at cornerback, and I know that Pete Carroll loves corners. And that's also why I actually have Will Johnson ranked above Will Campbell because of the productivity Carroll has always been able to get out of his corners. And if you put Will Johnson, 6'2", 200 pound, next to Ja'Cory Bennett in that secondary, and then you'll also be able to get after the quarterback like I'm hoping the Raiders are going to invest in, whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, you get 2 lockdown corners. That's another part of the game of why the Eagles dominated Kansas City. They were able to get pressure with 4 people without blitzing 38% of the time. And then when you go watch that all 22 film, those guys weren't getting open, and Andy Reid was completely lost. Before, though, we get into the top 5 prospects that I would want the Raiders to get realistically at number 6, if you're looking for more content from Chat Sports, I'm talking NBA, I'm talking MLB even, football, draft content, we've been doing a lot more stuff on social media, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, so you can give Chat Sports a follow. Like, there's content that I don't even post on my own Instagram. Like, there's, like, random stuff that we're always doing around the office, and, it's fun stuff. It allows y'all to get to know our team here a little bit more. But give us a follow, Chat Sports. If you want to follow us on TikTok, Chat Sports TV. Let's go to number 5, and this one, I think it's going to surprise some people out there. I have Travis Hunter, and I have him listed as a corner. So for those that don't know, Hunter right now is listed as a defensive back for the NFL Combine. I'm a believer that he's going to play corner in the NFL. I don't think he's going to play both ways. And I say that simply because no team is going to pay him to play both sides of the football. An agent's going to want him to be at one position and one position only, and I think they're going to want him to be at his best position. He's a better corner than he is a receiver, but the only reason why I have Hunter at 5, and a lot of people would say he's the best prospect in the draft. The only reason why I have Hunter at 5 is because corner is important. But I'm about winning in the trenches, and these next players are going to help me win in the trenches and they're going to help chuck the football. Let's go to number 4 here on the list. It's Jalen Walker, edge rusher from Georgia. And Jalen Walker is a fun player, dude. And at 6'2", 245 pounds, this is another one of those just freakazoid athletes. If the Raiders are unable to bring back Malcolm Kuntz, and you put Jalen Walker on a field with Max Crosby, and you allow him to be this outside linebacker that I actually think Patrick Graham has been looking for a very, very long time. The name that I always bring up during free agency is Azeez Ojulari. Azeez Ojulari I shouldn't say on steroids, but like the upgraded version would be Jalen Walker, and he's somebody that's going to get better and better and better. He's literally a dog. Fun dude. You can use him in a bunch of different ways. Versatility. He could have been the best defensive player I think he was the best defensive player on Georgia last season. Let's go to number 3, and this guy's stock for me is just, it keeps going up and up and up, and I almost wonder if I might put him at number 2. It's Mason Graham, defensive tackle for Michigan. Somebody was talking to me the other day about Mason Graham, maybe a month ago, and I was like, I got to watch more tape on him. I'm in love. And I mean, Mason Graham, if you want to come to my wedding, I'm giving you an invite right now. 6'3", 320 pounds, 46 tackles, 3.5 sacks for Michigan last season. And I know the Wolverines took a little bit of a step back overall, but that defense, man, was vicious. The double teams that this guy takes on, and the mentality that Mason Graham plays with. The last time that I saw a defensive tackle that I thought had the motor and just had that like Max Crosby mentality of, it's going to take 5 guys to block me. I'm never going to give up. I can dominate in the run. I can dominate getting passes. I can take on double teams. Was Brandon Fisk, and he was a defensive tackle last year for Florida State. Ended up going to the Los Angeles Rams, I believe, with Jared Verse, and Jared Verse ended up winning Rookie of the Year. Mason Graham is the type of dude, you put him in the middle of the field who loves football next to somebody like Christian Wilkins. Max Crosby gets 20 sacks if they draft Mason Graham at 6. I'm telling you right now. At number 2, it's Abdul Carter, and he is the best edge rusher in this year's class. If you're looking for the next, I don't want to say Micah Parsons just because he's from Penn State, but I literally think Abdul Carter can be Micah Parsons. I watched a lot of Penn State football, and he was injured in that final game that he played, and I don't know how many people actually watched that game. He was dominating. And when you have the first step, when you have all the moves, when you have the bend, when you have the acceleration, Abdul Carter with Patrick Graham and Rob Leonard has the opportunity to be the best edge rusher in the NFL. He has an opportunity to be better than Max Crosby. And I don't say those words lightly. And if you haven't seen how special Carter is, I think it's time for you to go out and check him out, because dude is an absolute box office type of player. You want to beat the Kansas City Chiefs? You go get yourself a Mason Graham and Abdul Carter. Or I'm just going to go with my number 1 player that I would want the Raiders to get at number 6. It's Cam Ward. Cam Ward has been my number 1 quarterback for over a year now, probably. I think out of all the QBs in the draft, the one that would be best fitted with somebody like Chip Kelly spraying the football around the field is Cam Ward. Do I think Ward is as good of a prospect as some of these other names that I've mentioned? I do not. But the QB position is the most important position. Ward is the only quarterback that I would feel confident starting week 1. He's the only guy. And I don't really know if that's would change. The only quarterback that I would trade up for is Cam Ward in this year's draft. The last thing that I'll say is this. Think about how the Raiders crushed the Brock Bowers pick. And this team still won only 4 games. It was an absolute dumpster fire. My point is, you can crush in the draft on certain players, and it might not make that big of an impact if your quarterback stinks. If Cam Ward and Chip Kelly get together with our coaching staff and it puts it together, I think the Raiders could be the next Washington Commanders type of football team. That's how well of a pairing I think Cam Ward and Chip Kelly would be. Because if you put it together with Cam, look out AFC West. Look out NFL. So one more time here, we're just going to roll quickly through our top 25 prospects for the Las Vegas Raiders at pick 6. Again, this is not my top 25 players. This is my top 25 players for the Raiders at 6 based on their needs right now before free agency. this list is going to change. It's going to change a bunch over the next 2 months leading up to the draft, depending on what the Raiders do in free agency. They got plenty of money to make a lot of changes, but I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I want you to let me know where you agree, where you disagree. If you haven't realized, I do see your comments. I do see what you guys have to say, and if you can't tell, I am fired up for this Raiders offseason, whether it be free agency, whether it be the 2025 NFL draft. I hope no matter what the occasion is, you pull up, you tune into the Raiders Report all offseason long, because I promise you, this is going to be the best offseason we've ever had.